There's like this unspoken recession going on for the past couple of years. Nobody's named it anything, but let's be honest, Main Street's struggling. A lot of people are struggling. There's literally mathematically less room on Americans' credit cards than there's ever been before. Checking and savings are lower than they've ever been before per American. Like there's a real unnamed recession happening. Yet I see people all around me still getting rich. You just have to figure out where the opportunity is.
Welcome, everybody, to the Chris Harder Show, where we are making you unapologetic about your pursuit of success, knowing that when good people like you make good money, they can then do great things. My name is Chris Harder, and several times per week, I will bring you epic guests, solo episodes, and every single tool, trick, and skill set you need to grow your business, grow your money mindset, and to grow your wealth to levels that you have never reached before. I've ended up in a unique place in life where I've got the experience, the connections, and all of the secrets that it takes to be successful. And I'm lifting the curtain to reveal it all to you in an effort to help put you in a position of abundance so great that you can then be as generous as possible. So let's lock arms and let's get started.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Chris Harder Show, where today I am grateful that my default mode is recognizing opportunity. Like, I always have my ear to the rails so that I can tell you what's coming down the tracks, what the right opportunities are, and what you want to have your hands in. And recently, Lori and I took a ownership stake in a peptide company, and peptides are an absolute rising tide right now. You can't miss this opportunity. And so number one, we're really grateful that we had this opportunity to be able to get in with this company. Number two, the reason why we did is, many of you know, if you've been listening to the show for a while, I had a stroke a year and a half ago, and it really messed up my brain. And at the same time, it really set me back. And then when I tore my bicep and my shoulder a year ago, that really set me back physically. So between the stroke a year and a half ago and then the major surgery on my shoulder and bicep and not being able to work out for a long time, those things really set me back mentally and physically. And I was having a hard time coming back from those things. And the stack of peptides that I am on has me thinking quicker, has me sharper than pre-stroke. No joke, not kidding you. And I was really scared. This is why I'm so grateful for it. I was really scared because I thought the one thing that made me who I am, being really sharp, being able to think quick on my toes, being able to communicate real well, I thought that was gone. And that was a very scary thing for me. And I thought it was gone. Like, that lasted a long time. And so to be able to think clearly and quickly, not just as good as before the stroke, but I would say even better right now, is an absolute godsend. And then what's happening to my body physically, like the entirely new shape that I'm bringing into this summer, is just epic. And I'm really excited about it. So my gratitude today is for peptides, but also for being able to recognize opportunity and say, oh, I don't just want to use them. I want to own a stake in a company of something I really believe in. And by the way, if you guys are curious about this, go ahead and DM me. I'm always happy to share what I'm using and what's working for me and get you hooked up if you want. Okay, now I want to share 3 lessons that really shaped me throughout my life. Sometimes you look at individuals whose maybe podcasts you listen to, or you see them on social media, or, you know, for those of you that I know, and you understand some of the things that we've accomplished, you say, God, how did they get there? How did they become who they are? Why did they think the way that they think? And for all of us, we have these key moments in life that really shape us. They're like forks in the road, and you thought you were going right, and all of a sudden you're going left. Or there are moments where you get to choose. Do I want to go left? Do I want to go right? There are these moments that either reinforce a way of thinking or reinvent a way of thinking. And most of these moments I'm going to share with you, these 3 lessons that shaped me, they reinvented my way of thinking. And I would share this with you. When things happen to you in life, a lot of times it's helping you reinvent the way that you see the world. And when you reinvent the way that you see the world, that's not a bad thing. It might feel bad in a moment. It might be scary in a moment, but it's not a bad thing because it allows you to have a new set of thoughts, which creates a new outlook. And with that new outlook, you can get brand new results that you never got before. So here's 3 things that, quote unquote, happened to me, but really happened for me to kind of helped shape my life and change the trajectory of where I was going to go. So I'm going to share the first one. This was 2008, 2009 when the Great Recession hit. And for those of you that have been around for a long time, you know that I used to be in banking. I worked for, at the time, the world's biggest bank. And I was doing great there. We were crushing it. And then all of a sudden the recession hit and it was a banking recession. And after spending a year of flying around every single day, almost laying off, over 1,000 people because it was a banking recession, it became my turn. And I had to be faced with the choice of either taking a demotion of a demotion of a demotion of a demotion and waiting it out, or taking a severance package and starting over. And I took the severance package and started over. And that's not the story. The story that shaped me was during this time, I had no other job choices. Remember, I'm a college dropout that just got lucky and became one of the fastest rising executives at the world's bank by just being talented and working hard. Like, I was willing to outwork everybody there and learn everything I needed to learn. And so when I got laid off, I was scared. I didn't have any, in my opinion, marketable experience because it was a lending recession and all I knew how to do was lending, right? And so a guy who I used to work with, his name was Todd, he came to me and said, "Hey, Chris, heard you just got laid off. I've started a tiny little mortgage brokerage over here. And I think if you came over as my business partner, because I worked with you for so long, you're good at the things that I am not good at, and I'm good at the things that you're not good at. I think we could really make this thing special." And so I did. Out of a lack of options, I really didn't want to take that partnership, but I took it, and it turned out with, let's call it, a lot of big wins and also a couple of big losses. But that also is not the lesson. The lesson is what happened while I was there. So Todd was always a very frugal individual, always took great, meticulous, detailed care of his money. And you couldn't get that guy to spend $1 if you begged him. But when the recession hit, that meant that he had the capital to take advantage of opportunities that other people who weren't as frugal, like myself at the time, weren't able to take advantage. And what he started doing was, if you know anything about this banking recession, everybody was behind on their mortgages. Everybody was underwater in their homes. And the banks had all of these mortgage notes, right? A mortgage note is when you owe the bank a mortgage. They had all these mortgage notes, millions of them, that were behind or underwater, and people weren't paying. So the bank's choices were write them off or sell these mortgage notes for at least something, pennies on the dollar, because, 20, 30 cents on the dollar is better than 0 cents on the dollar. And this happens all the time, by the way. People sell mortgage notes all the time. They trade them. So Todd had proximity to somebody, because he owned a mortgage bank, that was selling mortgage notes for, some of the great big banks at the time, like Countrywide and Bank of America and some of those other ones. And he had the capital to take advantage of this. So these banks, I'll give you an example, would have somebody who was delinquent on their mortgage, and they might have had a $300,000 mortgage, right? They owed $300,000 on a home that was once worth $400,000. But when the recession hit, if you remember, a lot of homes went back 30, 40, 50%. And so this $400,000 home was suddenly worth $250,000, but this person owed $300,000 on it to the bank. So it was upside down. It was underwater by $50,000, and they were not making payments on it. And remember, this is millions of Americans at the time. And so the bank said, well, we got to get something for this mortgage note because right now it's worthless. And so they would sell it to people that wanted to try and go and collect on it. So Todd would buy these mortgage notes, in this case, for 50 cents on the dollar, 40 cents on the dollar, 30 cents on the dollar. In other words, he would buy a mortgage note worth $300,000 on a home that's probably worth $250,000 at the time. And he would buy it for $150,000. Okay, 50 cents on the dollar. Then he would go to the homeowner and he'd knock on the door and he'd say, "Hey, good news. I just bought your mortgage note. I'm not here to collect. I'm actually here to forgive you the $300,000 that you owe and give you a check to move out so that I can at least get something for this asset." And people love this, right? They were having hard times. They were behind on their mortgage. This guy knocks on the door and says, I just bought your mortgage. Not only do you not owe it to me, but if you sign this paperwork, I'll give you $10,000 to move out so that I can at least do something with this asset that I just am going to acquire, which is your home. And now he did this in mass. So that people would take the $10,000 check. He's now $160,000 into this home, and he would fire sale it, right? How quickly can I sell this thing? Remember, it's worth probably $250 at the time for like $220,000. So on a $160,000 investment, he would make maybe $60,000. And this would happen quickly in a matter of weeks. And he would do this at scale, 10 of these things at a time. So I watched him make millions of dollars doing this over the course of about 24 months. And I remember sitting there being so jealous that I couldn't participate because I didn't have a pot to piss in. Lori and I were starting over from below zero at the time. So I couldn't participate in this opportunity. Now, how did this shape me? What was the lesson here? You're going to think it's one about, well, take better care of your money. Yeah, I had that lesson, but that's not what today's point is about. You're going to think it's something about like job opportunity. No, it's not about any of that. The lesson that I took away from this is during a time when everybody was losing their jobs and everybody was losing their homes, and the news was full of all of this drama, that everything was just terrible. Nobody was making any money. My business partner, Todd, was making money hand over fist. And the lesson that hit me was that whether it's good times or whether it's bad times, somebody is getting rich. You just have to figure out where the opportunity is. And I think this is timely because there's like this unspoken recession going on for the past couple of years. Nobody's named it anything, but let's be honest, Main Street's struggling. A lot of people are struggling. There's literally mathematically less room on Americans' credit cards than there's ever been before. Checking and savings are lower than they've ever been before per American. Like there's a real unnamed recession happening. Yet I see people all around me still getting rich. And so things like being able to take advantage of this peptide opportunity, things like being able to take advantage of some other companies that we're involved in, is because I had this moment way back in 2008, 2009, where I said, I am never going to think that there is a lack of opportunity again. Instead, I am going to program myself so that my default is seeking the opportunity. And my belief is it doesn't matter if it's good times. It doesn't matter if it's bad times. Every time is opportunity time. You just have to shift where the opportunity has shifted to. And that is the most empowering thought that you can possibly have because it is true. Matter of fact, the biggest companies and the wealthiest people make their money when everyone else is saying that there is no opportunity. So for what it's worth, feel free to borrow that first lesson from me. You don't need good times to get wealthy. And you don't have to go backwards in bad times when it comes to your wealth. All the time is a good time to find opportunity and make money. All right, the second one that really shaped me was this. In 2020, my dad died unexpectedly of a heart attack. And none of us saw it coming. My dad was the quintessential perfect retired 72-year-old individual that you would have ever aspired to be. He had purpose. He was still chairman and president of the board of the Wisconsin Maritime Museum. He had fulfillment. He exercised every day. He was fit. He was happy. He had family. He had everything you would ever want when it came to retirement and did it right. And because he was so healthy, when he'd go in for his basic checkups, nobody bothered to check and realized that he had a 90 whatever percent blockage in one of his arteries that ended up taking his life the morning of June 4th, 2020. Now, this was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This was the most tragic thing that's ever happened to me. This is literally the worst moment in my life. So what good lesson could possibly come from that? What shaped me from that? Well, I'll tell you. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning when I got the phone call that Dad died. And Lori and I and my brother Nick and his girlfriend at the time, we were staying up in Big Bear, California, which if you've been, it's like this little rural mountain town. And we were up there, and Lori and I were hiking at 8 in the morning, and I got a phone call from my parents' neighbor, and the guy's name is Ian. Ian said, "Hey, you got to get home. Your dad just had a heart attack and passed away. I'm so sorry to tell you." And aside from being in absolute disbelief, I thought, holy shit, what's going to happen to mom? And so we quickly chartered a plane. And if you remember in 2020, there were no planes. They canceled all the flights. In June of 2020, it was still part of the whole, everything's shut down, you can't travel pandemic. So we chartered a private jet right away. And within hours, not even the next day, within hours, a few hours, we were taking off to head home and take care of mom in Wisconsin. Now, here's the thing that hit me. I had to move so frantically to like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get home? Where are we going to find a jet? What are we going to do with the dogs? I had to tell my brother. Worst thing in the world is breaking this news to your brother. I had to do all that stuff. And so I didn't have time in the first several hours for it to really sink in the magnitude of what happened. But as we were on the tarmac and as we were starting to take off, I remember looking out the window to my left. And right as the plane is starting to go up in the air and leave the runway, I looked out, and my first thought that I can remember having that had any significance towards realizing that dad was gone was this. I thought, oh my God, I am so fucking grateful that I don't have any shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Meaning, we worked so hard at making memories a priority, at making time spent together a priority. All of the Friday night dinners when I wanted to be at dinner somewhere else or I was too tired from my week, all the morning bike rides when I would rather be at the gym or I had a busy day ahead of me, all of the trips that we would take together as a family, the fact that Lori and I would bring mom and dad out on our dime and put them up in a rental just several blocks from us in Santa Monica, California at the time, every winter for 4 to 5 months so that we could make memories and they could be out of the cold in Wisconsin. All of that, the intentionality behind all of that, suddenly became priceless. And I mean priceless. What that did for my healing journey, knowing I didn't have any shoulda, coulda, wouldas, knowing that I didn't have anything left unsaid, knowing that I always chose to make the memory instead of make the selfish choice, that locked in my set of beliefs that you must live life to its fullest. You don't know that you're promised tomorrow, and that making memories a priority and not putting them off absolutely is what you need to be doing. And I don't mean you need a lot of money to do this. I just mean saying yes when your parents or somebody you care about asks you to do something. I just mean being the first one to say, hey guys, we haven't gotten together in a while. Why don't we go do this thing? Being the first person to say, I love you. Being the first person to say, I'm sorry. Being the first person to say, hey, I didn't mean what I said the other day when we got into that fight. Being the person that squashes the problems and makes the memories a priority will be the person who is rewarded when you're faced with a time similar to what I faced. And I always kind of had a hunch that I was doing the right thing when it came to being a memory-making machine, but I really had no idea of the exponential value that that would have when I unexpectedly lost my father. And so now I'm able to live without regret when it comes to that. My only regret is that it didn't last longer. That's it. But I guarantee you, I made more memories with my family. I made more memories with my dad than probably anybody else out there that gets to have their father until he's 100. And so that reinforced that second lesson for me, that you need to be the first one to say, I love you, the first one to say, I'm sorry, and the first one to say yes to making memory making an absolute priority. And so I do that today. I live that way today still. And then the third lesson that really shaped me was this journey of starting Frello. You know, I went out and I raised capital for it from friends that are now investors. And that was over 3 years ago. And then we built the greatest peer-to-peer personal loan app you could ever imagine. We spent $2.5 million in over 2 years building this thing. And we were already in our beta launch, and we were just 5 weeks from like real public launch. And this was going to be the best thing ever built in history. You know, a stranger named John lending $500 or $1,000 to a stranger named Bob, and we moved the money and we insured the loans. We did everything. Neighbors helping neighbors, strangers helping strangers, the man helping the man instead of going to the bank or worse yet, these predatory payday loan stores. This is just people helping people, and we were facilitating it. And what happened was just weeks from public launch, after having all that time and all that money into it. Those of you that don't know the story, the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, who really says, oh, we're out there to protect consumers, but really they're just another paid off government agency by lobbyists and banks and all those other individuals. They sued the only other company doing something close to what we were doing. That company's name is called Solo Funds. They sued Solo Funds saying, hey, we know that you're not a lender. You're just a matchmaker, which is what we were going to be. Just matchmaking someone who wants to help someone with someone who needs help and facilitating the movement of money. We know that you're just a matchmaker, but you kind of look like a lender. You kind of smell like a lender. You kind of dance like a lender. And at the end of the day, you've made 1.5 million loans for $1 billion between individuals on your platform. So we're going to classify you as a lender, and we're going to do it retroactively. So you now have 1.5 million violations of Truth in Lending, Fair Credit Act, all these other things. I mean, we are talking disaster. And when this happened, this was May of 2024. When this happened, our attorneys came to us and said, hey, you can't launch. You can't do this. Where there was not precedence. No one cared what Bob lent Jim $500 for. Where there was not precedence, there was now precedent. And that was one of the second worst days of my life. If losing dad was one of it was number one for sure. This is, second or third on the list. And overnight, after all that time and all that effort, I suddenly didn't think I had a company. And I had to go back to the drawing board, because this is what entrepreneurs do. And I had to find a pivot, and I had to find a solution, and it had to be something that was going to be transformative and sexy and innovative. It couldn't just be a normal, boring lender, because that's not what people invested in, and that's not what I wanted to create. I still wanted to reward the ambitious person. I still wanted to reward the person who's going to help other people out. And it took us months and months and months to figure out what our pivot was. And then we found it. Nobody had ever bothered to be an aggregator of the hard and private money space, which just 3 years ago was a $50 billion a year industry in the United States. Over $50 billion lent in hard money. That means if someone's flipping a house, typically is when you use it. It's a fast, easy to get loan where a private guy or a private institution lends you real quickly on the asset of the home, so that you have the money to acquire it and flip it, instead of going through all the long underwriting that a bank takes and all that. Matter of fact, over 90% of flips use hard money. So just 3 years ago, it was a $50 billion in 2024 industry. 2025 jumped to $90 billion. 2026, we're going to be over $110 billion. So what's the lesson? We're launched. We haven't done a public launch. So if you're like, ooh, let me use it, I can't let you use it yet. We did a private launch because we really are policing deal quality right now between our lenders and our borrowers. But we've launched, baby. And the lesson is this. Sometimes when you're heartbroken by not being able to move forward with the thing that you were committed to, and when life redirects you through heartbreak and challenge, it's really pushing you where you were actually meant to go. Because this industry right now is exploding. It's an absolute rising tide. The opportunity is doubling and then doubling again, because banks' liquidity is getting a lot tighter. I'm friends with somebody that buys $1 billion a year worth of commercial real estate. He's done it for 30 years. And last year was the first year he had to use a private hard money loan. So the timing of this couldn't be better. That is just good old-fashioned dumb luck or God shining down on me. And I thought it was tragedy. It was disguised as one of the biggest challenges of my life. It's what gave me my stroke. Well, technically, I gave me my stroke. That's a different podcast. You can go back and listen to that one. But the point is what gave me my stroke. And that tragedy wasn't a tragedy at all, because now we have a business that has way less risk. The way we've rebuilt the platform. I mean, way less expense, way less overhead, way less risk, and much higher profitability per transaction. And it is in an absolute juggernaut of a rising tide. And so I share this third lesson with you, that when you think something's happening to you that looks and feels like it's packaged in tragedy, I know it's really hard to believe in the time. I would not have looked you in the eye and said, oh, don't worry, this is happening to me, or this is happening for me, not to me. I mean, I tried to reframe things that way, but the truth was it just felt like shit. It just felt scary. You just felt like a loser that had to find a win somehow in the time. But when life hands you something that is packaged as a tragedy, I want you to not give up. And I want you to realize that if you stick with it and go through the really hard fire, that on the other side, you will be forged into something much stronger and much better than you ever expected. And the opportunity on the other side will be much better than you ever expected. And you are not being burnt in the fire, you are being reshaped for something better when these things happen to you. So these 3 lessons, the lesson of there's always opportunity, whether it's a good market or a bad market, you need to become an opportunity-seeking machine and believe that. The lesson of making memories and really living life because you're not promised tomorrow. And the lesson that when things are packaged as a tragedy, they really actually are just reshaping you for something better. Those are 3 lessons that have really shaped me throughout my life so that I have these strong defaults that lead to strong outcomes. And that is my only wish for you. Because when that happens, let's dust off the old saying from back when the show was called For the Love of Money. When good people like you make good money, you can then do great things. I love you. Thanks for listening. If you want to learn what I'm using for peptides, feel free to DM me at Chris W. Harder on Instagram. And I have completed the contract of one of my one-on-one clients. We had awesome results. Oh my God, awesome results. Keep them private for now, but awesome results. That means I can now open up a spot to work one-on-one with one of you on your life and your business. So if you are earning over $300,000 per year and you want someone to get you past that 7-figure mark, or if you're over 7 figures, you want someone to get you past that 8-figure mark. And if you want to do it in a more elegant way, if you want to do it with someone who's already kind of done it the tough way, if you want someone who has a Rolodex that's second to none, if you want somebody who has experience by investing in 22 different startups, so I understand every single industry and have connections in every single industry, reach out. I would love to lock arms with you and work one-on-one. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Always love and appreciate you.
Thanks for listening. And if you loved this episode and know of someone else who is as successful as they are generous, please pass them on to me. It would mean the world to me if you help me get this cause and this message out to as many listeners as I can. So please, if you liked what you heard, it goes a long way if you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review and share this with your friends. I'll be forever grateful. And until the next episode, cheers to your success.